Welcome to the Haunted Hangover Podcast. I'm Louie, and as always, I'm here with my bud Dave.
Hey.
So what's going on, Dave? Today we're going to open up the show a little more casual, a little more laid back. What you been up to?
Not much. I was talking to my buddy Elijah earlier, aka Magnetic Magic Rentals, and I was telling him, I was like, it would be so cool to get paid to like hunt down media for people, like records and tapes and VHS. And I was like, dude, I would be so good at doing this. Like, just going on Discogs and looking for records and tapes and all like obscure shit. Because that's like the hole I've been like diving down lately. Is like trying to get like older hardcore records that I liked a lot back in like the early 2000s. And like surprisingly, some of these records are like dirt cheap. Like, there was this band back in, like, 2000, I'm going to butcher the year, but sometime in the early 2000s, called Allegiance, and the record rips, man. And I was like, you know what? I want to see how much this is on Discogs. So I go on it, and I found a copy, like, for $10, and it was in mint condition. I was like, yeah, I'm fucking buy this.
That's a cheap. I thought you were going to say, like, $50.
No, dude, $10. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm buying this. And then, I also bought a copy of the Majorettes on VHS, and I got the Vestron video release, and I'm pretty stoked for that. But I dropped some dough on that.
What year did that movie come out again?
86, but the Vestron release, there's two releases. I'm not sure who put out the other one, but the Vestron release is from 88, I believe. And it has a much better cover than the other release.
I have to watch that movie. It's been a long time since I've actually seen it.
Yeah, it's been a while too. What's his name did it? Bill Hinsman, the guy that did Flesh Eater. So he did that, and it's got like the same cast. But yeah, it's a good one, and that's one of those movies I've been meaning to rewatch. And I was like, I watched the trailer, and I was like, yeah, let me just like search for this on tape, and I found it, and I dropped a couple bucks on it, and yeah, I'm excited.
The high school majorettes. They're so popular. So pretty and so desirable. You just can't take your eyes off them, and that's enough to get them killed.
So the topic on the show today is going to be haunt memories. In our last episode, Dave and I created a haunted attraction. You had a good time doing that, right, Dave?
I had a great time. I wish I could really make my haunt come true.
Yeah, your haunt was the most cerebral, I think, out of all of ours.
Hey, I'll take it.
So we kind of went into how important haunted attractions are. And we don't want to kind of backtrack and kind of repeat some of the stuff. It'll just be redundant. But I thought it would be interesting for us to kind of talk about the first time we ever went to a haunted attraction, and then talk about one of our favorite haunts and one that brought us, a lot of memories going forward. So Dave, what's your earliest like haunt experience?
I was thinking about this and I was taking my notes. I was like, there was definitely two instances where I was like, I wonder which one came first. And I'm going to go with the one I'm about to tell you, which is, and I've mentioned this in our very first episode, which was my elementary school that used to really go all out with the Halloween parties. So they would have this Halloween party. It was at night, which I thought was a little strange, but kind of cool. It was at night in the gym, and they had this haunted house set up on the stage. And I remember seeing this box, and that's how you got into the haunted house. So like they had the curtains like closed on the stage, and they had it draped over the box. So then once you crawl through the box, and you got to stand up, and then you're in the haunt. And I just remember like the actual like having to get down on your knees and crawl through a box was terrifying to me. And I must have been like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. I don't know what grade you are when you're that age. But I just remember like being like, holy shit, that's crazy.
So the box, was it like a cardboard box or like a
Yeah, it was just a cardboard box.
Oh, I'm thinking it's like some like they built this like box that you have to walk through. Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was a cardboard box, and you would start by crawling through the box, and then you stood up. And I just remember like just thinking that was so wild. And I remember, and I don't know why I remember this, but one of the kids that went in it was dressed like a soldier. And he was like like an army soldier. Like, I'm sorry, obviously he was like a jungle army soldier.
He was like G.I. Joe, basically, is what I'm picturing.
Yeah, like he had like a tank top on, and like he had like a black ribbon tied around his arm, and like had like the face paint on, and he had like a crappy like little machine gun. And I just remember like, yo, that kid's fearless. Like, I can't believe he's going in there. And I just was so terrified to go in. And I remember at the end of the night, I was so curious to see what was actually on the stage in the haunted house. So I don't remember if my mom was there with me or if it was just like maybe my uncle or someone, but I had probably asked my mom to ask the teacher if I could go in the haunted house after the actual like Halloween party, just so like I wasn't afraid. And I remember like they're like, yeah, come on. And I actually went through the box, and I was like, yo, this is amazing. And you stand up, and the way they had it set up on the stage was just like these really skinny rows. Because now you got to think of it's an elementary school stage, so it's not a big stage. And what they did was that they just partitioned like rows of like with like boxes and stuff, and you just walk through these rows that were only like a couple of feet long, and all it was just cobwebs and like little decorations. But the kicker was that the light was really ominous looking. It was this dark red light, and it was like, I'm trying to think, I want to say it's like it reminded me of the movie Prom Night. It was just really like it was really like evil looking. And and I just remember saying to myself, this is what I was afraid of. And honestly, that was it. Like, ever since then, I went into and still do, going into every single haunted house. Anytime I think about it, that's always the memory it goes back to as far as haunts go. So like, that's always the one that stuck out to me, and I'm going to go with that's probably my first haunt memory.
It's funny because the way that you're describing the haunt, almost do you how familiar are you with Ernest Scared Stupid?
I haven't seen it in a while. I mean, I know there's like the troll, and
yeah.
I definitely remember parts of it. It's another movie I need to revisit.
So in that movie, the kids, they make like their own little haunted attraction or haunted house. There's actually two things your memory reminded me of. And the first was that because the kids used like cardboard, if I remember correctly, like cardboard boxes, and they had and the girls walking them through it and telling them what's gonna happen like later on that night on Halloween. And that's what it reminded me of, because I'm picturing like just boxes, like cardboard boxes from your description, like really hokey, really cheesy, and obviously like your school was involved, like the kids were probably involved in making this thing, but you were probably too young to realize that. Like, you probably had an idea.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing it reminded me of is another old show, Rugrats, when they turned their garage into a haunted house. So that's like just very homemade, like almost like a home haunt. That's like the vibe I got from your memory.
It's funny that you say the haunted house in the garage. Down the block from me, there's I forgot the name of the street. I think it's Roosevelt it's called. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Jefferson Avenue, that's it.
Okay.
So Jefferson Avenue growing up was always the local block that we all hung out on. Like, played Manhunt, played dumb games in the street, just did whatever dumb shit us kids would do. And there was this guy, and his daughter was in the same grade as me, and he was like a woodworker. He did stuff with her. I'm not sure if that was his profession, but in his garage he had a Halloween party, and it was amazing. And he was like, when I say so, going back to woodworker, he like would make like these wood toys for us, like phaser guns, like sci-fi phaser guns made out of wood, and he had this Halloween party there one day, and it was like a haunt. Like, they had bobbing for apples, they had like stick your hand in the spaghetti, it's brains or something like that. Like,
yeah.
Like, so you bringing that up just reminded me I have a memory of that. I actually did get to go to a haunt in someone's garage, if you will. So, and it was awesome. I don't remember how old I was, but just going back to the haunt that I was talking, my memory that I was talking about, that had to be, that's still in the 80s. Like, that was 89. So
yeah, so you were a kid. You were like really
young.
So
I
was to be like 5 or 6.
5 or 6
you had
for
to
sure.
be like max like 7, right? 6 or 7.
Yeah, but so I'm not sure how old you are in 5th grade, but I wasn't in 5th grade. I was probably in like 3rd grade. So
yeah, I think 5th grade is 10. You're 10 years old.
I'm not even sure. I really don't know.
I think it's 10. When you're in the 5th grade, you're 10 years old. So you were probably like 7.
Yeah, like 2nd or 3rd grade or whatever. But
yeah,
I just remember always like those parties were so on point and they were just so good and even like the costumes the kids have were always like way more creative than people are now. And you have like everything at your disposal now, and that is, I think that's funny. Like. You know what I mean? Like, you literally can put together the most elaborate thing, and people don't. I mean, they do. Don't get me wrong. But, like, majority. And, like, you have, like, these little kids and their parents, like, doing these homegrown Wolfman costumes, and they look great, So, it's just a different time, and, But, yeah, that's my first memory. And again, I was terrified. And then I went in, and I'm like, this is it? This is was what I was afraid of.
It's funny that you say you were 6 when you went, like 6 or 7 when you went to your first like haunted attraction or haunted house, and the same goes for me. My first time going to a haunted anything, I was 6 years old because I remember my sister was just born. Mm-hmm. So that's how kind of I correlate the age. I remember my sister was like she was born maybe like the year before, maybe, so she was maybe like a max 1 year old, so she was still a baby technically. Right. So my mother used to like hang out with her friends and stuff like that, and I remember one night, she would bring me with her because some of her friends had kids too, so she'd bring me with her and I'd play with the kids, and randomly one night she didn't even warn me, give me a heads up, mm-hmm. which leads me to believe that it was a spur of the moment thing even for her. She tells me we're going to go check out a haunted hayride. And at this point in my life, I didn't even know what a haunted hayride was. I just knew it's haunted, and we were near Halloween. Halloween was coming up, and automatically I thought that's going to be scary.
Because as a kid, this stuff in your head plays out so much larger than what it actually is.
Exactly. So I just remember, it probably was earlier than it felt. It felt like it was midnight when we went to this haunted hayride, and we randomly just drive out to New Jersey, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And I'm like 90% sure that, again, this was a long time ago, so my memory is a little fuzzy. But I do remember some things. I don't even think my mother told me until we were like there that that's what we were going to do. Just to kind of, she knew I was going to like cry and be upset and probably not want to do it and be a huge pain in the ass. Because at this point, I was always attracted to horror and to spooky things. But I was 6, so I was still scared of stuff because I didn't understand it 100%. Because you're a kid, you don't know any better. You think monsters are real at that age.
Of course. I did.
So I remember jumping on the hayride and just being like completely terrified and covering honestly, I probably covered my eyes 50% of the time, but out of my own morbid curiosity, because I was always just attracted to like horror films and things like that. I would open them and look. And I would peek my head out if I heard like no screams or like no noises, thinking like, oh, okay, the coast is clear, and I would look. But I remember this hayride being the first time I had ever seen someone use a real chainsaw. Like, it's crazy because I think now it's kind of like common knowledge that a lot of like haunted attractions have like a dude with a chainsaw at the end of the haunt that kind of like chases, like he just kind of chases the guest out. But, for me, being so young, like, it was so shocking. And when I describe how I remember seeing this chainsaw, you're going to laugh. So, you know how you've been on a hayride before.
Yes, I
You know,
have.
you're usually everyone's sitting inside, and usually there's like a barricade around the actual hayride, and then obviously a tractor trailers, like a tractor's pulling it. So when this guy with the chainsaw revved it up, all I saw was the blade going around the actual like cart itself. It almost looked like Jaws's fin. Like it was almost like Jaws's fin kind of just going around. And what's funny is I'm pretty sure that's not what actually happened, but that's what my brain thinks all these years later. The way like that's what I saw it as a kid. And I remember freaking out because, you know, you associate at that age, you know, you associate that with, I don't even think I knew who Leatherface was. So I'm just thinking everybody's Jason. You know what I mean? So I'm just thinking, oh, that's Jason, you know, and he's trying to come and get me. And it's just funny because I just remember seeing the chainsaw just kind of going around. And another thing, I have 3 memories of this hayride. There was this one guy who just screamed, and like he just screamed, "Watch out!" and threw a fake body dressed in like full gray sweatpants, like a sweatsuit, like the shirt. It was this had to be like 1990, 91 maybe, and he threw the dummy, but it was like hanging from a string, so it kind of just like flew over us. And I remember just kind of freaking out seeing it because I thought it was like a guy trying to jump into the hayride, into the actual cart. And I wish I remembered more of it, but I don't, and it sucks because I kind of want to know what it was like. I wish I could go back in a time machine and go through that haunted hayride again. It's funny. I even asked my mother. Like I asked her recently because we were going to talk about our first haunt memories, and she doesn't even remember which one it is. So I knew this was a last minute thing for her because I feel like she would have remembered the name of it if it was something we had done a couple of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you say like you ask your mom, because like there's been times where I've asked my mom stuff, and sometimes she remembers it and sometimes she doesn't. But it's almost funny because like if they do remember it, they'll tell you like how it was, and it's like, wait, I don't remember it being like that at all. You know, it's funny.
Yeah, because you're seeing it from the perspective of like a child. Like everything is bigger, everything is more intimidating.
It's so different.
Exactly. So the last thing I remember about this hayride, and in my mind, this is like the greatest hayride ever because obviously I'm looking through it all nostalgic and stuff, is at the end of the haunt, as like right when you're about to get off, I just remember seeing this dude wearing an oversized like Frankenstein's monster head. And it's funny because I feel like I remember seeing these masks in like Party City back in the day, and he just like waved at people as the tractor, like as the hayride was kind of just moving along. And it was just, I remember peeking, and that was the last thing I saw before the hayride ended. And this like hayride, this unnamed hayride, because I don't remember the name, and my mother doesn't either, just has always been special to me because it kind of started my love for all things like haunted attraction related, like anything haunt related, you know, because going forward, I remember the following Halloween, my mother took me to another haunted house event that used to happen here in New York that we might cover in a future episode. Like, and I went consecutively maybe to that 2 or 3 years in a row. And going forward, I was just really into haunted attractions and haunted hayrides and anything that pertains to that.
It goes hand in hand.
And then eventually, you know, as I got older, I was able to venture outside of New York City and visit ones out in Virginia, Pennsylvania, even California. So, you know, I feel like being so young, and it relates to your memory, being that young, it just molds you. And I guess that's why we both love, because, you know, you and I have gone to a bunch of haunted houses together. And, you know, as friends, we have a lot of similarities when it comes to that. And you could just tell we're not scared of them. because we're not.
No.
You know, we go through them and we just get a kick out of it now, and it just, you know, it makes Halloween feel like Halloween.
Yeah, of course. That's actually a really good way of putting it.
You know, and not to be a downer, but just with everything going on, my only worry this year is, will we, like, obviously there's other things to worry about, but, you know, everything that's been going on, you know, will haunted houses even be around this, you know, this October and September? You know, will they be around? My fingers are crossing that they will,
let's hope so.
And that, you know, we'll be able to have a good time, you know, going to these attractions. And, you know, because Halloween doesn't feel the same without it. I could never imagine an October
without going to a haunted house. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I would never imagine, you know, even September, because I usually you know, start going in September. We've gone, I think, to some in September.
Yeah.
You
we
know,
did last year.
Not going. Yeah, we did. You know, not going to one, that would be insane. You know, but if it's for everyone's health and safety, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was going to ask you, have you looked up anything about the hayride that you went to? Like, have you typed in like New Jersey hayride early 90s?
Oh, dude, I've looked. So what happens is, if you type in like Google search haunted hayride New Jersey, you get like 50 of them because there's so many. Right. You know what I mean? Now, the one I'm thinking it was, because we had gone to it years later, and I don't even know if it still exists or not, but there was one a few exits before Six Flags here in New Jersey, close to New York. And I think they used to have like a giant like statue of Dracula outside. And we did go to that one time when I was like in my early teens, like 13. But I remember asking my mother, was it that one? And she's like, maybe, I don't know. Like, she didn't even, you know? So a little part of me feels, and that one's a lot of fun, it might have been that one. But I'm sure she probably had a few drinks that night, because she didn't drive to this haunted attraction. There was like a group of like 9 of us, because it was her friends, and her friends' kids. So it was a bunch of us. So, you know, it's one of those mysteries I'll never solve.
You know what? It might be better off that way.
This year, Kevin McCurdy's Haunted Mansion presents a whole new breed of interactive terror.
Wanna play?
Where you must escape a series of chilling traps if you hope to get out alive. It's all new at Kevin McCurdy's Haunted Mansion across from Boatwood Park on Chief Road. Visit thehauntedmansion.com for details, and don't be afraid to scream.
So, this is going to be a little weird. So, mine isn't necessarily my favorite haunted attraction, but I would say that it's maybe the coolest haunted attraction I've gone to by accident. So, just to throw a little bit of a curveball. So, in 2011, and we're on the subject of hayrides, 2 coworkers and myself, we used to go on these Halloween trips. So, like, we would pick, like, a haunted house we heard was really good, and we go to it. So, one of the trips was Headless Horseman in Ulster, New York. And so we go. I think we went for, like, 3 days or something like that. So, one of the nights that we didn't go to Headless Horseman, and by the way, if whoever is listening, if you've never been to Headless Horseman, it's a very good haunt. You should definitely go. We had seen these signs on like random spots, and it was like Haunted Mansion. That's what it said. It just said Haunted Mansion. And then I remember seeing another sign, and it said Kevin McCurdy's Haunted Mansion. So Kevin McCurdy is a name in the haunt industry. He's been doing this for years. His haunt is very close to Headless Horseman. It's in Wappingers Falls, New York. It's the Hudson Valley area. And, he has this attraction called Kevin McCurdy's Haunted Mansion. So we see this sign, and we're like, we should go to it. And it was raining that night. And, like, literally we had to go, like, a path that's on the side of the road. So we go, we decide to go, and we're driving up this path, and we're joking around like, oh, maybe we actually will die before we get to this haunted house. And
I feel like everyone says that. I know, it's hilarious.
Everybody says it. So we get there, and dude, there's nobody there. There's like, it was a weird night. Like I said, it wasn't nice out. It was like foggy. It was raining, and there was maybe like 6 people there. So it was very like, the way it was set up was like, it was very good. Like the way it was lit was really cool. It was like this very kind of, I don't want to say claustrophobic's not the right word, but it was very like compact, the way like the waiting area was set up. So I don't like remember the haunt itself, like a lot of it, but I remember that there was this part where you have to help like these doctors and like a time machine, and they put you in an elevator, and this was like not like some corny little thing. Like this was like an elevator room that shook and trembled, and like it was crazy. And like it was really cool, and they really made like the haunt, like the entire haunt itself, just off of the fragments that I remember of it, because this is 9 years ago now. They really did like their best to incorporate the indoor and outdoor aspects of the haunt, because most of the haunts are inside. It was like 3 different little buildings you walk through, but they also made it a point to incorporate outside when you transitioned into the other houses. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like in between the buildings, there's like little...
Right.
Cause, yeah, I've been to other haunts where they have like, they separate little buildings with like little walkways. Like some have like a graveyard outside and you pass through it.
Exactly. So I don't know if this was like after the time machine part. It might have been. So you get out and you're in like it looks like a farmhouse. It's like someone's like property, and there's like this heavy set guy, like, on the lack of a better term, like a hickish looking dude. He's got like a piece of straw in his mouth, and he's got a shotgun in his hand. He's just rocking back and forth in his chair. And he's super quiet. He's like not even trying to scare you. He's just kind of there to guide you. And he's sitting there. There's like twangy country music playing kind of like in the background. And there's like all this fog going on top of the real fog that's actually out at night. And he's just like motioning his gun. He's like, over there. And like he had like an accent. And, like a twangy accent. And it was just like, it was just the atmosphere they put together was just so good, and it was just so cool. And again, there was nobody there, so like it was such an intimate experience. Like me, like my 3 friends, my 2 friends and I, and it was a cool. Like I said, the haunt itself was pretty decent, but all the things that I did tell you about were part of that haunt, and it was one, and the reason why I chose this was because it was like the coolest accident that happened. You know what I mean? Because there was no plans to ever go to this place.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because that's actually happened to me too, where like I've been driving back from a place and I see a haunt like on like signs for it on the side of the road, and it actually happened a few years ago on the drive back from Salem, Massachusetts. I think we came across this haunted attraction called Dark Side, I think is what it's called. I actually wrote a review for it on my website a few years ago. And it was just by accident. It was a rainy day, and we decided to just check it out because we kept seeing signs, and you're like, hey, fuck it. We'll just...
your curiosity gets the best of you.
Exactly. And when they have little signs like advertising like that, it heightens it even more. You're like, damn, this looks kind of cool,
It piques your interest. And it's...
Exactly.
And like, that was really like the... Like, that was the main reason why I was like, yo, you see this like all the time where like we shouldn't go to the weird advertised haunted house. It's like, yes, we should go to the weirdly advertised haunted house. So that was like ones. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it was really good. And there, one more thing that I do remember about it was they didn't have a ton of actors, and they utilized what actors they had so well. and again, it was just like this very intimate experience, and it was awesome. Like I said, it's not my favorite haunted attraction, but it's definitely worth going to, and I'm almost positive the guy still does it. The guy, like I said, his name is well known in the haunt industry, and I have a friend that works for a Headless Horseman, and when I told him about this haunt, because at the time when I told him, I didn't know the name of it, and I was like, yeah, it's like so-and-so's haunted mansion, Kevin something, and he knew what he right away. He goes, Kevin McCurdy? He goes, yeah, that guy's a legend. And I was like, oh, there you go. And he was like, yeah, he's like, that haunt's cool. So he's a well-known name, and it was like I said, it was a cool experience. And if you're in the Hudson Valley area, I highly recommend checking that haunt out. It's very well done.
Not afraid of the dark? You don't know Jack. Look out for the new Halloween Horror Nights 10, only at Universal Studios.
So a little backstory. I've been going to Universal Studios like in Florida since like the park opened. So I think the park opened in '89, and I've been going since. I was probably like around 5 years old when my mother and my grandmother took me. So like if you look it up, the park had a history of kind of not like a lot of the rides didn't work in the beginning. So they had a really bleak first few months. And I even remember my mother getting free tickets to like return because of all the technical issues. And we went
that makes sense.
And we went 2 years in a row because of that.
My mom and grandma took me there as well when I was a kid. So it's funny that we both had the same situation. Not Halloween, not the Halloween Horror Nights, but Universal Studios.
Yeah, I have a ton of memories from that park, like going on the King Kong Confrontation ride, the Jaws ride, Back to the Future. Like I even still own some of the original like merchandise and memorabilia from like all the earlier visits. I still have
stuff's gold.
I still have a King Kong from that original King Kong ride that I bought when I was like 7 or 8. But those two parks in general will always like be like some of my most cherished memories, and I can honestly go on about those parks forever. But for some reason, as a kid, my mother never took me to the first iteration of Halloween Horror Nights, which I believe started in 1991. It wasn't until like 2011 that I was finally able to check it out, and I loved everything about it. So the park itself is basically transformed into like this huge Halloween party. It's got a ton of atmosphere, strobe lights. There's like creatures lurking around every corner. They decorate the park. I think they put every year the theme changes, so they kind of change it up here and there. But for the most part, the entire park is just scary and horrific, and they even light it darker. And they have these like little scare zones that are not haunted houses, but you just kind of pass through them as you get to different areas of the park. They have a ton of food, a ton of booze. There's just a lot going on, and I feel like if you love haunts and you love Halloween, you have to go to these things. So the funny thing is, in 2011, if you look back and you check out like what haunts they had that year, because they use a lot of IPs, so they basically get the licensing for like movies. So like Friday the 13th or whatever, The Shining, they'll get the IP and create a haunted house themed around it. They also have like a couple of original haunts. But if you look back to that year, which I believe was 21, so it was Halloween Horror Nights 21, they had a The Thing haunted house. But it wasn't The Thing like the John Carpenter, Kurt Russell one. It was like that shitty remake sequel that came out a few years ago. Do you remember that?
Yeah, is that the one with I forgot the actress's name, the girl from Scott Pilgrim?
Yeah, Mary Elizabeth Winstead or something like that. I think that's her name,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I have a question. Is that ending of the movie supposed to be the beginning of the actual movie, The Thing? Was that what that was?
So I've only seen it once, but if I remember correctly, the ending of the newer The Thing that came out in 2011 ends with, I think, one of the like dogs running off, because remember they try to kill the dog in the first thing. So
but doesn't it, and please do not get mad at me when I say this, because I have not seen John Carpenter's The Thing in a while. Doesn't the movie open with the dog?
yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So yeah, so the Thing that came out a few years ago, that's the prequel to The Thing, correct?
Technically, it's like a prequel remake,
Right.
because it doesn't.
It's not like said, but it's like they hint at it.
Yeah, because I've only seen the new one once. The John Carpenter one I've seen a million times. But if I remember correctly, it ends with the dog
Right.
like running off, and like that's the dog from the beginning of the John Carpenter thing.
Yeah.
So Halloween Horror Nights that year created a haunt themed around that version of the thing, the newer version. And honestly, that haunt was better than the movie itself. like the level of detail that Universal Studios puts into these like haunted attractions are insane. Like in that Thing haunted house, it's cold when you go in. Like they either have air conditioners on full blast or something, because it was actually cold from what I remember. And it also was, I think, snowing periodically.
Yeah, that's cool.
And like you see one of those like snow plows outside of it before you even a lot of their haunted attractions are inside of these like lots. Like they're indoors. They have these big like production lots, and they build them in there, so they have tons of space. And when I say, dude, it's so amazing how much detail they put into some of these haunted attractions. It's crazy, dude. Like, here's another example. One of my favorite haunts, like haunted attractions that they had at a year of Halloween Horror Nights, was an Exorcist haunt. And when you're walking into this building, you're walking into the house from The Exorcist. And in the mirror, like they have like a window upstairs with the light shining out of it, like in the movie. It's amazing. Universal Studios, I don't know if it's their slogan anymore. It's always like you ride the movies. Like it's supposed to feel like, you it might be a dated terminology I'm using, because I think that's what they used to tell people.
It's fitting though.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
It like just the amount of detail they put into these houses is insane. Like it makes you feel like you're in these movies. And honestly, their original haunts are just as impressive. Like they had one year that was all Western themed with like skeletons. I think it was actually maybe 2 or 3 years ago, because I've been, I believe, 5 times. I've been to the Florida Halloween Horror Nights 4 times, and I went to the Hollywood one once. And it's just so impressive. Over the years they've had houses themed after Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and even like Stranger Things. It's just insane.
I've heard nothing, like everything that you're saying. I've heard that the production value is like off the charts.
Oh,
so
yeah, dude, it's crazy. And like going back to the Exorcist house, the way they set up that house, that haunted house, basically you're going in and out of Reagan's bedroom multiple times. You're not physically going in and out of the same room, but they recreated the room like 4 or 5 times, and every time you walk through it, it's a different scene from the movie. Like one room had her levitating, one room had her head spinning. That's awesome. Oh, dude, it's crazy. And it's funny because I remember going through a portion of it, and you see like the Pazuzu statue hidden behind like a wall, and it lights up and you see it. I remember you walk down this hallway. This shit was hilarious. And it smells like vomit. It was disgusting. And they mimicked her bed sheets. So they basically you're in this narrow hallway, and all the walls were the same pattern and texture as bed sheets, her bed sheets. And there's just like, you hear like vomiting noises and like you smell it and there's like water hitting you and then there's like green shit on the walls. Like it was amazing. Like, dude, it's just crazy. And on my last trip, they had a poltergeist house. And dude, you walk into the house from the movie. It's the amount of detail. I know I'm redundant in saying that, is insane.
No, it's I've heard nothing but great things, and I really would like to go to one, so I hope I get to.
And you know, it kind of over the years, it's kind of not gotten a bad rap because I think most people that go, you know, they love it, but it gets insanely crowded. Like, dude, I'm talking about, like, I know we mentioned Salem like a few episodes back, how crowded Salem gets in October. Halloween Horror Nights, I'm talking, dude, it's packed. You could wait in line for 2 to 3 hours for a haunted house.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I always tell everybody, if you're going to Halloween Horror Nights, be ready to spend that extra cash on an express pass because you're not going to enjoy yourself if you think you're going to, or you're going to miss out on half the haunts because you're going to be in line half the night. You know, you'll be able to complete all of them. You know, every time I've gone, I bought the express pass. And I think I even went to some of the haunted houses twice. You know what I mean?
How long do you wait on the express pass?
When we've gone, it was, I think last time we went, maybe, I think you wait like 10 minutes or so. You're not on it
And how
long.
much is it?
So it's changed from year to year, dude. I've been going since, you know, it's almost 10 years I've been going to this event. And I think when I first went, it was like $50, but now it's like $100. It's crazy.
It's, you know what? It's worth it.
Exactly. It's worth it. Because, you know, when you buy the Express Pass, you can enjoy yourself. I know you don't drink, but like I was able to go to the bars because they have bars everywhere. I could get a drink or two. They have like these weird, like, themed foods. So like, for instance, when I went last, they had the Stranger Things house. They were selling the Eggo that Eleven eats on the show with all the whipped cream on it and all that shit. So you could legit buy like food from the show. So it's just the immersion of the entire event is just crazy. And I know you and I, and we won't name just in case we decide to talk about it in a future episode. You and I last year went to an amusement park event for Halloween, and it's fun, but it's not Halloween Horror Nights. Like it's not, you know, like it's not.
Yeah.
It's just not that level of immersion. And like when you go, you like right now, I you know, I'm talking about that thing that I mentioned, that thing haunted house. Like I vividly like remember like just because how it impacted me. Like I felt like I was in the movie. I wasn't scared. I was just amazed at just how good of a job they do. And the sound is powerful, dude. When you walk through these things and like a creature comes out, it's like a fucking T-Rex. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. It's fucking crazy.
You're legit on like movie sets. Like, you know, dude. Like, of course.
Dude, the Demogorgon in the Stranger Things house looked like the goddamn Demogorgon in the show. Like, I mentioned in the last episode that they had a Halloween 2 haunted house based on the second movie. And dude, they were able to mimic a hospital on fire. And the guy dressed up as Michael Myers is all burnt up like at the end of Halloween 2. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
that's sick.
It's insane. It's insane. And they use all kinds of smells to the Texas Chainsaw House smells like fucking raw meat and like rust. It's crazy. It's crazy. But in general, I've been going for years, and I just have a lot of great memories going to that event. And like I said, I always tell people, like, you'll have a blast. It's totally worth it. It can get a little expensive, but even if you just go once in your life,
you have to.
You have to. It's worth it. Yeah. Like it's just amazing for any person that loves Halloween, loves horror films. If you want to know what it feels like for Michael Myers to stalk you, go to Halloween Horror Nights. Like
perfect.
I'm sure I'll go again soon, and hopefully I can create a video, you know, and share my thoughts literally right after going. So let's see what happens. And Dave, you have to go soon too.
This Halloween, party with your favorite monsters during Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios, Florida. And right now, carve out savings of up to $16 off admission with this special coupon you'll find on 2 liters of Pepsi. For details, visit a Pepsi display near you. Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios. Hurry to Ticketmaster today for advance tickets, while you can still slash the price.
All right, so that's some of our favorite haunt memories. Dave, I know you just released a new EP. Want to give us some info?
Yeah, I released a new EP titled Harpazo. It's music I composed for various platforms and some B-sides. It's on Bandcamp at wekeepoddhours.bandcamp.com. It will be on all the streaming sites very shortly. And yeah, so it's music that I've been wanting to put out into the world. So head on over to that Bandcamp site if you want.
And be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Haunted Hangover.
And if you can rate and review us, that would be greatly appreciated.
And remember, the best cure for a hangover is
more booze.
Later, guys.